Here's a quick disclaimer. The central figure of today's video, Kirsche, is someone I've had drama with in the past. TLDR, she accused me of stuff I didn't do, linked me to events I had no part in, and refused to look at any evidence that could exonerate me. I don't think she did this out of malice, but paranoia. And I understand why. Every creator who gets even a drop of an audience has to contend with the possibility of hate watchers making stuff up about you, or trying to catch you in a trap. Lord knows it's happened to me several times. And that paranoia, while always there on some level, is something that you eventually learn to control. Today's video is unrelated to my drama with Kirsche, and I want this to be absolutely clear. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because I want you to understand that I'm actually pretty biased on this topic. While I generally give what I think is a pretty unbiased and dispassionate take on any of the news that I cover, this time I'm actually predisposed to be against Kirsche's position. So take that into account as we go forward. Also, even though the chance of this is low, if for some reason you think you should go bother her in my name or something, please don't. So, have you guys heard of OffKai Expo before? It claims to be the first convention to focus specifically on VTubers. If you check out their company on the non-profit tracker HYUK, you can see they got their start in 2022, making this year the third OffKai Expo. A quick scroll through their YouTube channel shows they started posting advertisements and clips from their conventions around this time. Anyone who knows anything about the convention space is that growing a convention company is a pretty slow burn, and year 3 is actually still pretty young, especially when you're focusing on a relatively new subgenre like VTubing. This time around, OffKai Expo 2024, there's actually a bit of drama that's gone viral. Kirsche was invited to join a panel at the convention by one of her fellow VTuber friends, a panel that itself hadn't been publicly announced or even confirmed to be a go yet by OffKai. Kirsche was told that OffKai was not going to allow her on the panel because she was, in her words, too risky. Now, as far as I understand it, Kirsche's content has a wide range, which is pretty common for VTubers. Sometimes she plays games, sometimes she reacts to videos, sometimes she just sits around and talks with her chat for a while. But sometimes she covers political or culture war topics from a broadly right-wing point of view, which is somewhat rare for a VTuber. And it's this stuff that she's primarily become known for outside of her own community. Kirsche had a back and forth with a representative at OffKai on Twitter, where the rep said, "Usually we ask to approve of any co-panelists ahead of time, but you fell through the cracks. We hope you understand that given the current state of VTubing, we would like to avoid collaboration with somewhat polarizing creators, such as yourself." Kirsche replied with, "I actually don't understand as I have no problems getting sponsors. I don't promote hateful rhetoric, and I'm genuinely surprised that I would be blacklisted from your convention. It feels like a single person dislikes me and has poisoned the well. You guys have hosted VTubers who have participated in harassment campaigns, which leaves me even more confused." I think this is in reference to Marina VT, who was heavily involved in the Hogwarts Legacy shitshow last year, on the side of the harassers, while nonetheless having official appearances at both OffKai Expo 2022 and 2023. This OffKai rep replied with, "No single person would have the ability to make this call, and it isn't a sponsor issue. Please understand we're an all-volunteer run event, and your name coming up made a lot of our staff uncomfortable. We value our team a lot, and do not want to cause issues this close to the convention. This is why the executive team decided against having you in the panel. This is not a blacklisting, you're still free to attend and participate in other ways. In other words, you can still pay us to show up as an attendee, but you can't be a speaker at the convention, got it." Kirsche responded with, "If people are accusing me of making them uncomfortable, I have a right to know what I've said or done to cause that, especially if it's having an effect on my ability to participate in panels and an effect on my friends as well." Kirsche repeats a few points and then says, one day later, "I would like to rectify this privately if possible. However, if left no other option, I will be speaking about this publicly." At this point, a guy named Lysander takes over the account and says he's the director of this year's convention. They move the conversation to Discord DMs. Lysander confirms that Marina VT is no longer working with OffKai after the Hogwarts stuff, which appears to be true as far as I can tell. A quick search shows that she has no 2024 OffKai announcements, only 2022 and 2023 ones on her social media. Lysander then says the following, "We're an all-volunteer organization. No one's getting paid, and the difficulties of managing 100 plus people includes making sure our team feels comfortable giving up their free time to help us." This appears to be true. The fact that they have a Cause IQ page means they must be a non-profit, and on there they list 0 employees. Lysander continues, "We have staff who are fans of you and others who aren't. It's fair to say that you're a bit controversial with a lot of your takes, especially for a staff largely based in California." Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The number of Californians that I personally know who can roll with an edgy joke, I can count on one hand. Lysander then repeats a few of the earlier points, that Kirsche's inclusion was last minute, no one knew, volunteers didn't want to work with her, and then he said they have a series of screenshots that some of the staff took as examples of what made them uncomfortable. Let's take a look at a few of them. First off, here's Kirsche responding to a news story where a trans woman entered a women's weightlifting competition in Canada and smashed the previously held record. In response, a bearded, obviously male-presenting powerlifter, identifying as a woman, entered the same competition, and then smashed the trans woman's previous record, proving the point that we all intuitively know to be true. Trans women in women's sports is fucking ridiculous. Sam Hyde posted the article saying, 2 months on HRT, let's go. And Kirsche's reply is that he should start entering women's competitions, which is exactly the kind of troll that Sam Hyde would run for a video. That shit would be fire. The next image is somebody replying to Justin Trudeau using the acronym 2SLGBTQI+, which is actually unique to Canada. Why does it always have to fucking be Canada? The 2S means two-spirit, which is some made-up indigenous trans identity that doesn't actually exist and was invented by activists back in the late 80s. Canada puts it in the front of the LGBT acronym because during Trudeau's term, the government became hyper-obsessed with self-flagellation. Kirsche's response is to basically just describe what the acronym is. The third image is Kirsche claiming that DEI isn't dying and that we haven't won, then going into her bridge research and saying that she's given it to Tim Pool. I don't agree with her assessment here. I do actually think we've crested the hill on all the woke nonsense. It is already going away, and the bridge stuff is not going to amount to anything. But putting this disagreement aside, it's pretty clear there's nothing offensive in this tweet. The next image is Kirsche commenting on the fact that Discord has added a pronouns entry into their profile page. I have no idea what to say about this one. The next image is Kirsche talking to Gator, who you might remember as Ethan Ralph's former co-host before he thankfully got out from under the gun. The topic is about how Kirsche was deemed ineligible by Twitter for revenue sharing. She theorized that she was mass flagged because a day earlier she had spoken about pronoun people infecting some anime wiki. What's interesting in some of these tweets is that the word pronoun is highlighted, which is what happens when you search for the term using Twitter's search function. Considering that Lysander gave Kirsche these screen caps, this means the person at OffKai who was offended had to specifically search her account for the word pronoun to find this post in this condition. And finally, the last image is a screen cap of one of Kirsche's streams, where she's sticking up for kiwi farms. If we're gonna be ultra charitable to the progressive position that OffKai's obviously taken up, you can kinda squint your eyes and claim that Kirsche's use of infected to refer to the pronoun people in the second to last image is an anti-queer remark, because despite claims that they're not bigots, these people think that anytime you talk about AIDS, it's necessarily homophobic. And what other infection could you be referring to, you bigot? Of course, we all know that's not what's actually happening here. Nothing Kirsche said here is truly offensive. In fact, it's all rather tame. What's going on is that she's expressing opinions that are specifically not progressive. She is pushing back against progressive political positions, but not in a bigoted way. Instead, she's simply stating an alternative point of view that she believes to be true. For example, if you truly were progressive, if you actually believed you can simply self-ID as a new gender and then some magic happens, and surprise, there's now nothing different between you and the person who was actually born that way, then there's actually nothing bigoted at all about Sam Hyde saying he's a woman now, and therefore he should enter women's sports. What's the problem? If that's how he self-IDs, who are you to judge? The problem is that this is a line of logic that obeys all of the progressive rules regarding trans women in sports, and nonetheless proves the idea to be retarded. Kirsche didn't need to resort to bigotry to tear down the idea. Simply following the rules of the idea to their natural end result caused the idea to collapse in on itself. And this is why the progressives and OffKai are actually objecting. Not because she's bigoted, but because she's correct. Each of Kirsche's posts all share this in common. There's no resorting to slurs or insults. There's no appealing to some alternate morality opposite of the progressive one. It's simply showing how the progressives' own ideas are incoherent. Declaring that she opposes DEI is simply one political stance of many that a person could hold. Neutrally pointing out that Discord now has a pronoun slot, or being against the progressive pronoun paradigm in general, is not an insult. Straightforwardly describing Trudeau's preferred LGBT acronym makes it sound like a fucking barcode. And while Kiwi Farms is actually a pretty shitty site, it doesn't do anything illegal, and it shouldn't be taken down because people who don't use it don't like it. This is the same take I had back in the day when Keffels tried and failed to deplatform them. It's obvious, at least to me, that the issue OffKai took wasn't that these posts actually contained anything offensive, but it's that the people at OffKai consider opposing progressive positions to be inherently offensive, no matter how well-reasoned or how polite you are while you do it. Lysander continues on back in the Discord DMs, but a lot of it is just waffling and repeating previous points. He notes that because the staff are volunteers and not employees, he can't simply order them to do something they don't want to do, as they're far more likely to walk away from the job without a financial incentive to stick around. Kirsche rightly points out that nothing's hateful in these screen caps, and pushes for more information. Lysander says that he understands her point of view. From her perspective, these are just jokes. But from the perspective of other people in the community she's joking about, it's not just jokes, it's hostility that will snowball into a vague something more. They go back and forth a few more times, the conversation kind of goes in circles, until eventually Lysander says, "We're at an impasse. You think it's all in their heads, but they have their own beliefs, and our job is to keep the convention going and deal with any issues that might come up. Public perception is a real thing. You have a reputation in the community in general, whether deserved or not, and that is just the age we live in." Kirsche ends with, "Yeah, we're at an impasse, and thank you for at least explaining the specifics of my unfair treatment." Man, it must suck when you're engaging in good faith and the other person is just mindlessly stonewalling you and not listening to any of your arguments and not willing to truly examine any other point of view but their own because they've already made up their mind about what kind of person you are and nothing you say can change it because they're not really hearing you anyway, and continuing to talk to them is futile because all your words do is twist around in their head to fit their preconceived notions of you. Yeah, that's just awful. Okay, I promised myself one dig at Kirsche, and there it is. My trolling aside, this is obviously pretty scummy behavior from Lysander, and the others at OffKai, isn't it? Kirsche didn't do anything to deserve this as far as I can tell. If OffKai considers itself to be a politically neutral operation, then it should feel obligated to invite speakers that individual people working in the organization might personally disagree with. Either that, or ban all politics from the event. No polytubers, whether they lean left or right or anything else. Then it would make sense to show Kirsche the door. But it's pretty clear to me that these are not politically neutral people. In fact, the response to this story from some people on the left does pretty much show that this isn't about presenting all points of view neutrally, or banning all politics from the event, but specifically about stifling right-wing positions and right-wing creators, explicitly by representing them as more extreme than they actually are. Case in point, look guys, it's Dead Domain again. Remember this nut job for my media literacy video? Yeah, you know what? She actually responded to that vid on stream. I'm pretty sure she called me a racist, a sexist, maybe a fascist, I don't remember exactly. But hey, when a populist anarchist leftoid and a populist libertarian rightoid both hate you, that's how you know you're truly a centrist. Dead Domain's take reads like this. It's funny they want to act like Kirsche had a little different opinion, whoopsie, and not that her most recent videos play like white replacement 4chan conspiracies, and nobody sane would want this trash associated with their event. Well, first off, the white replacement isn't a conspiracy theory. I ran the numbers in a previous video. And believe it or not, people from various European ethnicities, along with various East Asian ethnicities, are actually having less children than people from various African or Middle Eastern ethnicities. The numbers ain't racist, darling. Also, I'm pretty sure this patriotic ethnostate speedrun thing is a meme title for a playthrough of Papers, Please. That game where you play as the border guard of an oppressive socialist nationalist regime, which is a pretty common joke that streamers do, you know. When they play a game with overtly political content, they name their stream the most radical version of those politics as a joke, you know? Like how lefty streamers would call their Far Cry 6 streams Gusano Simulator, you know? It's part of the fun. You know, fun? The thing you should be creating as a game developer and streamer and stand-up comedian? From the point of view of people like this, and of the activists who are inside of OffKai, conventions, game development studios, news outlets, schools, these things aren't neutral institutions whose impartiality is to be respected and cultivated, so that they may truly remain inclusive, open to all types of people with very different points of view. No, they don't view it that way. They are the means of cultural production, and the activists feel as if they have a moral obligation to tilt them in the direction of one political point of view to the exclusion of all others, so that their views can become just a little bit more normalized in just a few more people's brains. It's Gramsci. Go back and watch my video on Gramsci and socialism. It's always fucking Gramsci. It's pretty clear this is a case of institutional capture. Like every other mode of cultural production in our society, the convention space has drifted leftward since I was in high school. Like 15 years ago, glomping and yaoi paddles were the norm at events like these. The cosplays were less professional but more authentic. The antics were more memey and more fun. You could tell these events were by fans and for fans. They were rough around the edges but produced with love. But nowadays, cons are just like movies and games and TV and any other generator of culture. They are positions of middle power that the left believes they have a duty to subvert and exploit, which means that we have a duty to keep them as neutral as possible. And if we can't do that, then abandon them to rebuild elsewhere. Now, in a liberal capitalist democratic society, property rights are respected. Insofar as OffKai is a privately owned company, and OffKai Expo 2024 is a privately owned event, they can choose to invite or uninvite anybody they see fit for any reason at all. That is their freedom of association. If they want to ban Kirsche because they don't like her politics, that is their right to do. If they want to ban Kirsche because they don't like her favorite type of cheese, that is also their right to do. The final say rests with them, and they have spoken. However, freedom of association works both ways. Kirsche has no right to unilaterally demand an association with OffKai, and OffKai has no right to unilaterally demand an association with you. As always, if this sort of thing bothers you, then you should vote with your wallet. Let them know that you find their lack of political neutrality in who they choose to allow as panelists and who to ban as panelists unacceptable. Other people have already begun to do so. An acquaintance of mine, a guy whose videos I watch semi-regularly, Rev Says Desu, has already confirmed that he's backing out of his meet and greet at OffKai Expo 2024. Others have joined suit, and the replies underneath every one of their official tweets are full of fans who are angry about this situation. The OffKai people unfortunately don't seem to be backing down, as shown by this guy, who asked about the situation in their Discord, was told to shut up about it and then got banned. So it seems like the consumer boycott is the only option left. The masses have no real power, except what they choose to spend their time and money on. And if this sort of thing is what you care about, then you should choose to spend it on something else, because they're not going to get the hint any other way.